Hi everyone, here we go with the second video in our ongoing series of the game Forum versus the Designer. And we are playing the game Order and Opportunity, making of the post-Cold War world order, currently on the P500 list of GMT Games. So after consultation with the US administration, we are ready to execute the US turn. From the previous playthrough videos, you will know the sequence of play here and the action phase, so I will not go into this in more detail. We just start going through the US turn here, so going to the development segment, drawing a development card, which is the debt check. Well, if we go up here to the resources, we can see at the game start nobody is in the debt part of the resources or the records track, so the card is simply set aside here for inclusion into the draw deck later on when we reconstitute the development draw deck. And so we continue into the opportunity segment. No action there to be taken at the start of the game, so just go into the commands section. And here I mentioned that I'm going to make a use of the mulligan opportunity here for the US to discard some cards and draw another hand to hopefully get at least one or two more military suit cards. So these are the cards with the shield icon over here. So let's do that. Just here checking what are actually the cards in the draw deck. So these 5 cards are in the draw deck. These we can expect to draw, and so let's drop them back into the draw deck and get rid of some cards from the hand. So these 2 remain, economic and military, and we draw 3, and yeah, we are actually lucky in that we get a second military card. So let's just organize those cards a little bit. We've got 2 military and we've got 3 economic cards in the US hand. And so we proceed to play the 2 military cards as you indicated. So first we must apply the consequence, which for the military suit is a decline in the world order contribution of the US. So here everyone starts on the 3rd level on the world order contribution track, but the US now must go down to step 2. There's no further effect at this point. If the US at any point hits the lowest level, then they have to pay 1 resource as a or as a penalty for failing to uphold the rules-based order. And there's a second consequence, namely, if either of the authoritarian powers should fall down all the way to the low level, they don't have to pay the -1 resource as long as any democratic power is either on the 2 or on the 1 level. So failing to uphold the moral standards also removes the resource consequence for the authoritarians. So, and here we go down to Asia Pacific, and use the first military card here to increase the US military influence to 2. With this we take military control in Asia Pacific. Control in this game is defined by the so-called stability value of each space. So here, for instance, the highlighted number 2 is the stability value, and if your level of influence equals or exceeds the stability value, then you control the space, provided that there's nobody else blocking you by having an equal or greater level of influence in that space, which is here not the case. As a bonus here, the momentum effect of this card that we've used to increase US influence here kicks in, and the momentum effect is the US gets an extra command or an additional command that they may conduct. So here the US player now knows, okay, we will actually get to play the economic cards we have in the hand as well. So that's a good thing for the US, a good move, I think. And of course, as noted in the Board Game Geek forum, we are also going to be able to pick up this opportunity counter here later on. And then the second card we said we were going to use in Eastern Europe. Here the same or similar parallel situation as in the Asia Pacific. Here only we increase the NATO influence. Here the EU player would have to be consulted, since NATO is controlled by the EU and the US player. So they, I think in this case they would both agree, yes, the US may increase NATO influence there. And again, the opportunity here is available then as well. And so here we take as a reminder for the additional command, a command marker, and put it next to the US cylinder, so we know that the US may take a second command once everyone else has had their first command. So in that sense, the US turn is now finished, and they pause. They do not pass. They don't go in here into the pass part, but they pause and stay in the commands box. Next up, it's the EU. So let's already execute the first few segments of the EU turn before then going back to the forum to discuss what the EU options are. So first drawing the development, and the development event is Alba. And so Alba is placed down here, Americas, and it brings these two event effects into play. I'm not going to go into too much detail just now on these events. And so the EU turn continues, opportunity segment, and now as it happens, the US, having increased the NATO influence here in Eastern Europe, actually puts the EU in the position to resolve the corruption Eastern Europe opportunity counter here, pick it up. For this also the EU would need the US permission, so in a 4-player game there'd be a discussion, possibly in a debate, whether the EU is allowed to pick this up, and if so, what kind of favors would the US expect in return. And that concludes the opportunity segment, so we go into the EU commands, and here we can look at the EU hand of cards. So there are some political cards and there are some cultural cards, the mask icon here, and there's one economic card. The mulligan option is also open for the EU in case we come up with plans and wish to then take a mulligan in order to get a little bit better hand, if you like. So let's keep that in mind. So what are some of the hotspots that the EU might be thinking about engaging with during their turn? Well, we've got the Brexit talks here as one world event. This can be only resolved by the EU themselves, and so they could earn 2 victory points from it. On the other hand, if they fail to resolve it, then the red icon there indicates that the EU will lose 1 victory point instead. As we noted also in the connection of the US turn, there's plenty going on in Europe other than that. Here we've got the Bronze Knight, that the EU with EU economic influence could be in the position to address. The interesting related option to this is that if the EU manages to get all the way to control, which in the Baltic states is going level 3, and have economic control there, they could use another card to trigger the EU expansion talks, which essentially give the EU one victory point. EU is certainly interested in Europe also for the reasons that the pivotal event for Europe, which is thematically titled Color Revolutions, so a series of democratic popular revolutions demanding more democratic rights and institutions in a set of former Soviet Union countries. So this is a process that is running here in the background. Each world event and opportunity resolved in any European space will advance the track either one level towards it getting triggered and scored, or then towards here to 0 and by that further away from getting scored. By scoring I mean then each space of Europe will be checked for control, and whoever controls the space scores 1 victory point. So there are potentially quite a few victory points coming from that scoring card. At this moment, if the scoring happened right now, it's only here in Eastern Europe where NATO is in control, and the NATO powers would have to debate amongst themselves who gets that 1 victory point from the scoring card. If we look outside of Europe, Well, there's Africa. There isn't all that much going on necessarily in Africa, apart from the world event here. But the advantage that the EU enjoys here is that they are the only one with any presence here, one political influence in North Africa. So this represents something of a head start for Europe, for getting in position here to score from the pivotal event of Africa, which is thematically titled Emerging Markets. So this could be another thing for the EU to spend some cards on, trying to build up their position in Africa and then perhaps score some points from there. As a final option, something to think about is the economic development track over here. This is actually a fairly new addition to the game. We will see if it survives development, but basically what it simulates or represents is the sort of the readiness of economies to pursue new emerging technologies, certainly various digital technologies, technologies related to environmental issues and so on. And there are also VPs to be had here. Whoever gets first to one VP here gets that one, and then all the way at the end there's even the 2 VP counter there. So economic development may be something to think about as well. So these are the EU options. So let's turn back to the forum and hear what you have to say. What are your thoughts? What should the EU be doing next?